Someone else is showing up to Egghead Island. Just when we thought this arc was over, done, no more big reveal things, Oda delivers
another one.
To which the readers reply,
"You're joking. Not another one? Oh, for God's sake, I can't."
And the reasonable assumption for this particular another one would be the Blackbeard pirates. But I actually think it might be someone else, and I'll tell you exactly who that is in a bit. Because we need to start things proper with the announcement that both Saint Saturn and Kizaru will be remaining on Egghead Island over the course of the Buster Call, which makes sense. Theoretically, neither of them can actually be harmed by a Buster Call, so why not? But it's also a move that I really like from Saturn. As a villain, I am rapidly growing to appreciate him more and more with every chapter. Because in this case, he's not doing the tired trope of just assuming that his evil plan is going to succeed. He's not ordering the Buster Call and then washing his hands of the situation, just assuming that it'll succeed. Saturn knows there's a chance that this won't be enough, and so he's going to stay to finish the job. Good man. I mean, bad man, but good decision making. Also known as that thing that Crocodile should have done on Alabasta when he gutted Luffy with his hook, or like that thing that Crocodile should have done on Alabasta when he buried Luffy in quicksand, or like that thing Crocodile should have done on Alabasta when he drained Luffy of all of his life fluids. If he'd stayed put for even a couple of seconds, he would have seen the water fall back down and revive Luffy. It's like Crocodile was mentally and physically immune from finishing what he started. But Saturn is not that, which is very exciting because it means that Saturn has taken another step towards a bit of an all-in here. It's becoming much more likely that we'll actually see him defeated, and I think it would be glorious if at least part of that defeat was caused by the Buster Call that he himself ordered. On to Kizaru. Look, I'm just going to be blunt. In this chapter, he is pathetic. There's this one panel in particular I'm talking about, and you already know exactly what the panel I'm referring to is. This is the most meek panel of Kizaru I've ever seen. In fact, it's the most meek panel of any Marine Admiral I think I've ever seen, because he looks like a dog who's been told off for urinating on the carpet. Bad boy, bad. Like, he knows he's done a bad thing, but he can't change it, and so all he has left is shame. Lots and lots of puddles of shame. Honestly, even Green Bull running from Shanks is less pathetic than this Kizaru, because at least Green Bull did the hockey maths and decided that it wasn't going to be a good outcome. He didn't betray his own sense of justice and morality, whatever they may be, but here Kizaru is just, well, he's broken. And a few chapters back, someone in my comments pointed out the salaryman theory, which is that all of the Marine Admirals, or at least all of the original Marine Admirals, are stereotypes based on Japanese salarymen. Kuzan's the guy who gets fed up with his job and quits. Sakazuki is the one who fully embraces company culture and dedicates his life to endless promotions and fulfillment of their goals. And then you've got Kizaru, the man whose spirit is gradually broken over decades and decades of service and ends up not really being able to function as an individual because that's all been stripped away by the corporate homogeny. So now he's just a soulless tool to be used by the company, that company being the world government. A metaphorical representation of what Bartholomew Kuma was literally intended to be. But as it turns out, even the hollow shell of Bartholomew Kuma has more willpower than Kizaru. I'm not even angry at him, I'm just disappointed, depressingly so. I think it's one thing to choose the wrong thing because it personally benefits you. It's a dick move, but at least something is gained. But this doesn't even benefit Kizaru. He's doing something that he doesn't want to do. And all because he's too weak-willed to even make a single decision for himself. And you know, maybe that's why we've yet to see Kizaru make a strong display of any type of haki. We know he can use both observation and armament, but even after a full fight with Luffy, we have very little demonstration of it. And perhaps that's because if haki is the quantification of willpower, and Kizaru has very little of that, then he can't really use much of it. And there is no way that he's a Conqueror's haki user. At least not with this attitude of servitude. Although actually, I don't think that any Admiral is a confirmed Conqueror's user at this stage. Not even Sakazuki. Right now, Sengoku is the only confirmed person who's ever held the rank of Admiral to be a user of Conqueror's haki. But look, I feel like I've accidentally slipped into a bit of a Kizaru rant. Mate, I did not expect him to be this pathetic. It's a very interesting twist on a character in his position, and I don't hate it. I'm always a fan of more character depth no matter what direction we go in. I just feel sorry for him and everyone else who gets harmed because he's too afraid to stand up to the system that he knows is wrong. And all he's going to do is stand there in his puddle of piss. But this system is currently doing some very wrong things because there's quite a bleak panel of Vegapunk alone in the frame, watching Egghead Island crumble around him. There's no dialogue or anything like hugely flashy happening in the panel. It's just us watching as a man's life's work is slowly destroyed in front of him. And you just know that's the reason why Saint Saturn hasn't killed Vegapunk yet. At this stage, there's no logical reason for him to still be alive. He's there, you can kill him, no one can stop you. He's standing helpless in front of Saturn and Kizaru, both of whom could erase his existence in the snap of a finger. But I think that Saturn is deliberately holding back the order to kill Vegapunk Vegapunk? Because he's taking pleasure in Vegapunk's despair. Saturn wants Vegapunk to see everything he's worked for be destroyed. He wants Vegapunk to know that all of his efforts will be for nothing, hence why he mentioned the evacuation ship. And he also wants Vegapunk to ideally witness the deaths of Bonnie and the others. Then, and only then, after Vegapunk has lost absolutely everything, will Saturn give him permission to die. That is the kind of guy Saturn is. It's not good enough just to take the most efficient path to victory. No, he needs to inflict as much pain and suffering on his target as possible, which is why at the end of this chapter he's practically creaming his spider pants at the thought of Bonnie being killed by Pacifista. Because in this moment, he's outdone himself. He's found a way for the daughter of a loving father to be killed by a representation of said father. He's not just killing Bonnie, he's finding the most twisted possible way to do it so that he can go back and brag to his geriatric friends about it when he gets back to the evil retirement home. The great thing about this is that it continues to place Saturn, and by extension the others, on a whole different level of antagonist to what we've previously seen, which we really need for the final saga. These need to be true pinnacle villains. But in terms of writing, it also gives Oda permission to do stupid things like keep Vegapunk alive for now, which will almost certainly come back to bite Saturn. His lust for cruelty will be his downfall. But back to Vegapunk's despair, that panel of him staring helplessly at Egghead's destruction reminds me a lot of this panel from Robin's flashback, where you've got Robin, Olvia, Saul, and Professor Clover helplessly watching the Tree of Knowledge burn down. And the main concerns of all of the scholars in this moment was preserving the information they gathered to be passed on to the next generation. Not one of them had a single shred of concern for their own life. They were mostly worried that their work wouldn't go on to change the world, which is the exact situation that Vegapunk is in right now. He's being faced with the reality that he may not be able to create the utopia he's been working towards. And if the Ohara parallels continue, what happened next is that both Clover and Olvia were seemingly killed when the Tree of Knowledge collapsed. I say allegedly because we don't see it happen. Like, we see the tree collapse, but we don't see them die. It's just assumed that they died, in the same way that it was assumed for the longest time that Saul died. Although I'd say there's a much stronger chance of Olvia having died at least, because if not, then she's got some explaining to do for why she never set out to find Robin. But they died making sure that that knowledge would be passed on. And I would expect Vegapunk to do exactly the same. His survival is not his personal priority, and I have no doubt that he will find a way to preserve at least some, if not most, of the Egghead research. But the question is, at what cost? And the answer is his life. His life is the cost, probably. Although Egghead Island could also be the anti-Ohara, where this time we're able to find a way to have a much less tragic outcome. Maybe. I don't know. I've got to be honest, I'm not feeling amazing about it at the moment. But then again, usually when we have Luffy on our side, things have a way of working out for the best. And speaking of, we do catch up with Luffy again, but rather annoyingly, it answers none of our questions and in fact only creates another one. So the Marines have found Luffy gorging himself in front of one of the food replicators. And so the question now becomes not who fed him, but who moved him there to continue to be fed. This has gone beyond simple Uber Eats. In this case, the driver didn't just deliver food to Luffy, he, she, or it delivered Luffy to food. I really don't think it was Luffy himself who made the conscious decision to move here. From everything we've seen of him, he's barely conscious to begin with, and he has no energy whatsoever to be making decisions about his own life. And we're seriously running out of candidates, because we can now quite definitively cross Kizaru off the list. A lot of people were big fans of the lightspeed food delivery idea, and we can also cross Atlas off, firstly because she said she couldn't move before, and secondly because she definitely hasn't had the opportunity to move Luffy since because she's been busy carrying Kuma. And at this point, it just has to be him, right? I always throw Swamp Nakuma's name into the arena as a bit of a gag, but from the very beginning of the Feeder Luffy saga, he's been the most reasonable conclusion. Unless there's someone on the island that we as readers are unaware of, it surely has to be Caribou. Because in this chapter we catch up with all of the Straw Hats, or at least we hear what all the Straw Hats are doing. Zoro's still fighting Lucci and they're sending Jinbei, not to help Zoro, but so that he doesn't get lost, which was funny. But we also catch up with all the remaining satellites. Except York, I guess. But that would be incredibly unlikely. So at this moment, all signs point to Swamp. He knows that Luffy is powered by food. He knows that Luffy is the only chance he has of getting off this island alive. And he's also the only one with the Devil Fruit ability that can be so sneaky. Even here in this panel, Caribou could be there, cowered in a puddle of his own making, because he's terrified of being spotted by the Marines. Whoever or whatever it is, I do wish Oda would stop teasing us. Once is one thing, but he's made us ask this same question now 3 chapters in a row. But luckily, he does also give us a brand new question to ponder, because at the end of the chapter, some new players players have arrived. And there's a lot of fun ideas as to who they are. The most obvious conclusion would be the Blackbeard pirates because we've already seen one of their ships lurking ominously around Egghead. However, there's a timeline question with that because the destroyed marine ship we see was sent to pursue the citizens who were evacuated yesterday, meaning that they had time to get far, far away. So it's hard to know how far away this new presence actually is from Egghead and at what point in time we're seeing the destroyed marine ship. They could be right here and now, or they could be hours, maybe even a day away given the timeline. However, given the fact that this island is going to be reduced to rubble in minutes, I'd say that they probably need to be pretty damn close to make a difference. Because despite our new arrivals, this chapter ends in quite a dire way. At the moment, we have at least 3 life-threatening problems that need immediate solutions. And one that I haven't covered yet is the situation with Brook and Lilith. They're a very fun duo, by the way. I always love it when Brook is paired with an equally, if not more crazy character, because he takes that energy and he runs with it. Brook is such a perfect companion to anyone. And he's proving once again why he's such an MVP to the crew, because he's able to use his vast library of weird techniques to freeze the cloud so that the Thousand Sunny can slide on it. But the dire situation here that Brook and Lilith now face is that neither of them can actually stop the ship. It's moving, but it's going to fall off the clouds imminently and probably down to the main part of the island where Sunny will be at the mercy of the Buster Call. So that's one problem to solve. The other is that Luffy is currently surrounded by Marines and he's personally unable to do anything about that, but we've already covered that. And the third is this really cool perspective shot of everyone falling because Kizaru cut them out of the vacuum rocket, and not just falling, but being targeted by every pacifista in the area. So that's a case of double death, getting shot by a pacifista and the impact of the fall. This situation needs to be solved within like the next second or so. In fact, that goes for all 3 of our desperate situations. One small detail I do like about this dire falling panel is that you can see that Kuma is still capable of moving because he appears to have grabbed Bonnie. So he's not quite gone yet, but for him to move, it looks like Bonnie needs to be in immediate death danger. But this is the thing that makes me question if our new arrivals are the Blackbeard pirates, because I don't see them stepping in to solve any of these problems for us. They're not our allies, and actually, they'd probably be thrilled to see the collapse of another Emperor of the Sea. I should note that Sanji is also available to do something. He's right below the falling group and has the handy ability to skywalk, but then again, there's a lot of big people falling. You've got Frankie, he's big. You've got Atlas, he's bigger, and you've got Kuma, the biggest. And Sanji, he's a strong boy, but he just doesn't have the arm space to scoop up all of those titans. So I'm gonna suggest an unlikely, probably very unlikely, but fun option. Could this be the arrival of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet? Because those are the kind of numbers that we need on Egghead right now. There's a fleet of 100 marine ships, and a force of 5,000 loyal pirates would be mighty useful to cause enough chaos for us to escape right now. And there's enough of them to split into teams and help solve these problems simultaneously. Like say Brook and Lilith falling and Bartolomeo creates a barrier that guides Sunny into the sea, stuff like that. Maybe Hakuba slices the Marines attacking Luffy, stuff like that. But I say this is unlikely because I don't know if this is the event we've been waiting for with the Grand Fleet, and their presence here doesn't really fit the arc thematically. Although we have been told that they would create a quote, incident of historic proportions, and so far this has been referred to as the Egghead incident. And also the narrator has said that the resolution of this incident the following day would inflict a kind of shock the world never saw coming. And it would be pretty shocking if an Elder Star, perhaps even a Marine Admiral, were defeated here. Can't deny that. Maybe even the death of Vegapunk as well. More shock. But my main question would be why now and when did they have the time to mobilize? Word did get out that Luffy had taken Egghead Island and that there would be a siege, which would give the Grand Fleet a reason to move maybe, because unlike Wano, they'd actually know that something was happening. But they'd all have to get there within like half a day. And that's probably possible for someone like Harudin, who is next door on Elbaf, but we have no idea where the rest of the crew are. But my other solution to at least one of the problems is the Iron Giant. That guy could quite easily save all of the characters currently falling to their deaths, or stop the ship with Brook and Lilith, or maybe even terrify the Marines away from surrounding Luffy. That's the thing though, it can solve one of these problems, but not all 3. And people are inevitably going to mention the Revolutionary Army as a possibility. They'd be more thematically appropriate than the Grand Fleet, given that this is all about Kuma. And there's even a fun meme on Twitter at the moment, having a bit of a laugh at all of the theories that Dragon was going to show up on Egghead Island, as well as all of the cope it's been inspiring since. But the Revolutionary Army are pretty much the only people we can be certain that it's not. Because Bartholomew Kuma was with the Revolutionary Army, and he only just got here, using his crazy teleportation powers. So the Revolutionary Army would need to be able to move faster than Kuma, and cross the red line to get here. And even if they could, the last time we saw him, Dragon didn't look like he was in any particular rush to do anything, as per usual. And we've even got Morley in the background doing a bit of a yak. Hardly preparations for battle. So you let me know in the comments, who do you think is showing up on Egghead? And possibly more excitingly, do you think that Oda will actually show them in the next chapter? Or is this a mystery that he's going to leave dangling for a month or two like most other cliffhangers? Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for consistent injections of One Piece culture administered directly into your YouTube feed.